Couple of guys will kick us off here. George says, "Are those phone lines lit? Bleeping brilliant." Dennis,
the correct quote is, "Get off your ass and get on the phone."
There you go. Okay, then Dennis, his last name's Good Night, like good night now. Dennis, good night now. I like Buffalo.
Buffalo at home. You know, there's always been fascination. Well, if Patrick Mahomes had to really do this, how could he do it on the road? Like I said, Mahomes 10-2 at Arrowhead in postseason games. Now, that does not include Super Bowl neutral site games, but we're talking wild card weekend or divisional play. He's 10-2. Dude has never played a road playoff game. Welcome. That is Josh Allen. That is cold. That is snow. That is 86,000 crazy Buffalo fans drinking Genesee beer.
That's just mind-boggling. He's never played a playoff game on the road.
That's because they've been so good.
Well, they haven't been the number one seed every year. So maybe when they weren't the number one seed, maybe did they lose a playoff game at home?
No.
They never have. So they've always been the number one
No,
seed.
I'm sorry. He is 10-2. He lost 2 playoff games at Arrowhead. But he's 10-2.
That's incredible.
But he's never played there.
Yeah, so we're going to find out how they do on the road. They're used to the cold weather. They went through it. But to me, this is the year of the Buffalo Bills.
The world stops this weekend to watch Kansas City and Buffalo. Go ahead, John. Next question.
Okay, let's go to Angel. He says, Baker Mayfield is having a renaissance, but comeback players should either be Rams, Matthew Stafford, or Cooper Kupp.
We always knew Stafford was a star. Kupp has not had the productive season this year that he had prior to the siege of injuries he had with the Rams. I mean, what Mayfield has done is 32 touchdown passes this season, well over 4,000 yards. That's kind of interesting. I don't have a problem with those Rams guys, but I think Mayfield has come from farther back in the pack. You know, Stafford just had to recover from some injuries, and he was back on the field and has done very well. But Mayfield doing this by himself with a coach in trouble, an organization that some people thought had seen its better time, fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Baker Mayfield is the guy for comeback player of the year. I mean, Stafford, great story. Stafford was in the limelight a few years ago. Maybe this is Baker Mayfield's time. Moving on. Okay, let's go here to John. And he says, there's a nice winter snow predicted by the DMV this weekend. Don't see the Texans beating the Ravens in the cold. It's a good time to be a Harbaugh.
Yeah, there's a lot of blast of winter weather coming to is it Delmarva Peninsula? Is that where Baltimore and Washington and Philadelphia and Virginia all kind of linked together?
Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, big time weather. So, yeah, this is going to be a huge challenge for C.J. Stroud because you're not playing indoors in Houston in that dome anymore. And that is Baltimore's defense, which is pretty rugged. But give that kid credit. You know, it's too bad he's lost 2 of his top 3 wide receivers, though he does have Nico Collins, and they do have Devin Singletary to run the football. But I think Baltimore at home, Baltimore with the weather, Baltimore with Lamar, Baltimore with that roster, too much.
Too much, yeah. But it is a good time to be a Harbaugh, right? Even Harbaugh dad got up on the national championship stage and was able to kind of shout out on the microphone. Yeah, I'm going to be with the Texans. You know, my son lives in Houston. He's adopted the team. I like CJ Stroud. DeMeco Ryans. I think it's a great story. And let's just see how golden that bye week is.
We carry on with more.
Okay, let's go here to Raul. He says, Raider Nation is a hot mess of emotions as every fan is a GM and wants their coach. AP, Antonio Pierce, stays, like it or not.
At this point, I think that Max Crosby's carried the room. I think the statements he's made and the fact that these players went public, that carries an awful lot of clout, I think, with Mark Davis. And the fact that they snuck Greg Williams, who's a really established defensive coordinator, in the middle of darkness to interview him, that leads me to believe, connecting the dots, Pierce stays, Williams is his right-hand guy. And it'll be fascinating to see what they do on the offensive side of the football because they're going to need a quarterback because I don't think Aiden O'Connell's a guy. And obviously Garoppolo is emotionally ready to step away and put himself back on the free agent market in March and see if he can resuscitate his career.
You know, it would be such a ridiculous decision if Mark Davis decides not to keep AP. I mean, because if your players are clamoring for the guy, they want to run through a brick wall for that guy, and you say no. I mean, they got to bring Antonio Pierce back, and I love the idea of bringing in the tough guy to transform the defense.
And, they're going to have a first-round draft pick, so maybe there is a unique quarterback out there they can get, or maybe once we get the final free agent list, maybe there's a free agent that they can lure there, because they sure do have pieces around the quarterback. They just don't have anything established because Garoppolo is not the same quarterback right now post-injuries.
Yeah, I was just still shocked they signed Garoppolo, but here we go again. Okay, let's go to Gary. And Gary says, I honestly think Snell doesn't have 7 years left in him.
Well, he throws a ton of pitches to get through innings. He does not throw a lot of innings. There's still a wear and tear factor. I think that you wake up one morning and this guy's not the same pitcher anymore. That's true. I would never give a pitcher 7 years. And I like Snell. He's a little bit offbeat, but the guy he's a gamer. He goes out and does it, but he only does it for 5 innings a game. And like I said, I mean, Scott Boras takes stars and gets them mega contracts, but my team, I'll give him 5 years, or maybe I'll give him 3 years in options at state-of-the-art money. I'll give him 3 years at $90 million. That's 30 per. And then we'll have options for years 4 and 5 if there is a year of 4 and 5. I'm not giving a pitcher 7 years, period, exclamation point. And I know you can argue with me about what the Dodgers gave Yamamoto, what the Yankees gave Garrett Cole, but those are exceptions to the rules. And those people are walking around like this with their fingers crossed, hoping nothing ever happens to those guys because they're on a hook for 10 years.
Well, Yamamoto hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball at all, and Snell has 2 Cy Young awards. I mean, but still, I think the math on all of this is changed. I think the way the GMs look at it, they sign someone to a 7-year deal. I don't think they expect that they're going to pitch for 7 years.
Except you're on the hook for 7 years.
But they understand that, and it gives them a chance to spread out the dollars so that the player gets the big dollar volume for the contract. But, the Padres signed Yu Darvish and Machado and Bogarts to play into their 40s. That's not going to happen. Those last few years of that deal are going to be, throwaway years.
So are you telling me, broadcasting from left field today, you would give Snell 7 years?
Well, the question is how many years. I would sign Snell with the understanding that I may not get the length of the contract. I might not get Snell for that full amount. But if that's the price that he's going to require, and I have to pony up $210 million, 7 times $30 million, then maybe that's the going price, assuming he doesn't price himself out of the market. But, pitching wins championships, and people are going to make the move, I think.
Do you get cold at night sleeping out in left field with opinions like that? Okay, move on. Couple more on Fans Forum.
All right, let's go here to Emmanuel. He says, I think Amazon and streaming is the future of regional sports networks. Hopefully it leads to teams signing free agents.
Well, there's a whole bunch of layers of things here. Item one, it's okay for John Riley to say, Amazon, great deal. We don't know what the Amazon price tag is going to be. This is like we had the discussion last week about the NFL and that the one playoff game on streaming, and they had 23 million people signed up for that one Kansas City playoff game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
23 million at $5.99. And suddenly everybody says, that works. Well, pal, if they take this thing, the AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, and the Super Bowl are on streaming. And John, by the way, you're so excited. That'll be $299.95 for the 3 games. Mm-hmm. Now are you excited? We don't know what the price tag is going to be.
But, you're already paying the cable company to get, when we were getting Bally Sports through cable, we're still paying for it. It's just reconfiguring how you pay for it.
But that's 162 games. That's not 3 playoff games at $299.
Well,
you don't think the NFL is going to let you have it for $5.99, do you?
The NFL is going to squeeze that turnip and get as much out of it as they can.
It's called squeezing the rock.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, Emmanuel, I think, brings up a good point, though, about signing free agents, because I think the Padres losing the Bally Sports deal has affected their payroll.
Oh, exactly.
So I think there's, like you say, there's so many layers to this issue.
Okay. A couple more here on Fans Forum.
Okay. And let's go here to Manning. He says, could this be the year where Scott Boras finally strikes out for his clients? The remaining big 4, Bellinger, Snell, Hader, and Chapman, still haven't found a team.
Well, you don't want to use the word collusion because that end up really badly. But there's got to be some common sense too. I mean, Boras gets paydays for his players, and at this point, there doesn't seem to be any interest in a 7-year contract for a pitcher. I think Chapman's price will come down. If it were me, I got to believe that Snell might wind up with a 5-year contract. I'd give him 3 years plus 2 options. Hader may well be going to Chicago because of the relationship with Craig Counsell. And I think Chapman's going to wind up in San Francisco with the Giants, but I don't think it's going to be at a $25 million a year contract. So again, agent can ask if somebody's willing to pay, there's the market. If somebody's not willing to pay, then you got to rethink the whole process. And, like I say, spring training opens in less than 30 days at most places.
Yeah, most places. One of the fans in social media was joking because we were speculating about Bauer and Urias and saying maybe they should go as a package to one team just so they can eat the whole bad PR, nut at once. But Chapman has a history. So imagine if a team took all 3 of those guys. I mean, that could be a circus.
But at what price?
Right.
That's the big issue, because who represents some of these guys? Okay, let's go to social media, because I'm sure we're going to get slammed there too.
Oh, we will. So, okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little bit about, here's a good one for Stafford and the Lions. And this is from Smooth One Now. He says, there were some uneven calls in the game. 2 that bother me were the roughing the passer call. No calls. Rams got a terrible call roughing the passer. Then Stafford gets the bleep kicked out of him. He almost gets a concussion and a separated shoulder. 2 guys pounded him. Nada. Then the obvious defensive holding call on Nuka grabbed his jersey. Game, set, and match. Prove me wrong.
No, you're not wrong. Game is so fast. The game is so furious. I think it's a real trouble spot. My gut feel, and I don't think the league would do it, Sky Judge, 8th official in the booth that can immediately stop the game, review a play, and say that was a helmet hit once and twice on Stafford, because he got it from both sides when he went down. And then you throw a delayed flag. But the issue is, are we going to stop the game every time there's a controversial call? Are we taking the challenges away from the coach? Or do we include an extra challenge that Sean McVay can throw the red flag out there and say, my quarterback got hit on both sides of the helmet. They were helmet hits. You need to review it. And then you throw the penalty flag. But you don't want the game to grind to a halt because everybody's waiting for the Sky Judge upstairs. Tough call.
Well, the main thing is they just got to get it right. Right. So even if there's a pause in the game and they got to review the film, just go get another beer out of the fridge or, go to the boys' room and take care of business, just as long as they get it right. And if they got it right, then you wouldn't have NBA coaches flipping their laptop around to the media, showing them all the bad calls.
Tough call. I think it really slowed the game down. But Sky Judge, I think, has to be in place to really help. The NFL has medical people that will buzz the referee, stop this game, take Stafford out of the game to the blue tent for an examination.
Yeah.
So you've got that. So why not a Sky Judge on the most controversial calls?
Yeah.
But does Sky Judge make the decision to stop it? Or do you give the coaches one extra timeout to throw a challenge flag to say, my quarterback got hit in the face mask? You need to look and see if that's a penalty.
Well, I would prioritize the Sky Judge first because they're going to have the video. They're going to be looking at it where the coach is only seeing it from one angle.
Okay. Social media, Slam 2.
Slam 2. Okay, here. Let's go here to Philip. And he said, I had to look up that NASCAR fight you mentioned. It was 1979. Hilarious. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. Rip to Cale Yarborough.
We were talking about Cale Yarborough's passing about a week ago and how he helped make NASCAR on TV work during a winter month when the nation was paralyzed by blizzards and everybody had to stay home. And here was the first ever televised Daytona 500 NASCAR. Because at that point, NASCAR was a good old boy sport with a bunch of moonshiners racing cars on weekends. And Cale Yarborough was banging doors with Davey Allison, and they were fighting 1 and 2 to win at Daytona, and they crashed each other out, and they both wound up spinning into the infield right next to each other, and they came out throwing punches. And they're lucky they didn't have wrenches in the cars because they were using the wrenches on the other guy. So that was the signature first time on television. It's like the old NFL. They say the National Football League became something special vis-a-vis television when the Baltimore Colts beat the New York Giants in the championship game in 1958 that went to overtime. Johnny Unitas, Alan Amici, and all that. That's what made the NFL what it has become, that first signature event that was on TV. Same thing with NASCAR.
You know, I went back and looked up that YouTube video as well, and it's terrific. I mean, it's just like the Dukes of Hazzard or something.
Yeah.
You're expecting Bo and Lou Duke to be out there. But yeah, what a history. I mean, those guys, no question.
Yep. One more here.
One more. Okay, let's do a Padre one here. And this is from Michael. And he says, talk about Preller, one of the worst GMs in the league. Trade for or overpays guys for career years. If this was a few years ago, he'd be offering Hacksaw Kim a huge contract worth tens of millions more than the next closest bidder.
Well, my big concern is if they trade Kim, and Kim's name is out there going to Miami in a deal for either center fielder Jazz Chisholm or pitcher Jesus Luzardo. And there's no doubt Chisholm's a good player, though he was hurt last year. And Luzardo has come back from physical woes, and he's a rock-solid middle back end of the rotation guy. But, man, Kim is so popular, and Kim's been so productive. And it's only $8 million per year. And if you're trading, to me, it comes off like a salary dump. And that's a bad message to the fans on top of whatever else you've done. I have such a mixed bag of emotions about Preller. I subscribe to his philosophy, boots on the ground. He may employ the most scouts in the world because they go get players, they find players, etc. But I have a problem because he overpaid. My golden retriever could sign all the players the Padres have. If my golden retriever had a blank check and could pay anything, and that's what Preller's done, is he's overpaid everybody. And I was thinking about this morning on the way coming over here. MLB Radio, the home plate channel that I used to do weekend shows for, they were having a discussion about money and contracts and players. And so part of it was about Snell. And I was just thinking about the international free agency. And, you know, we talked extensively about Adrian Morejon, the young left-hander who's been with the Padres 6 years, 7 years now within the system, can't keep him healthy. They signed him to an $11 million contract. And they had to pay an $11 million tax because they were over the limit. And then they signed another Cuban outfielder, Jorge Oña. They paid him $7 million, had to pay a $7 million contract in tax. So Morion's value is $22 million investment. Oña's value, who they just released, is $14 million. That's $36 million for two guys who haven't done anything at the major league level with any big input. Morejon, has had a good week or two or a good month. Oña never got here, hit one home run one time he was here, went back and never amounted to anything. He was hitting 214 at AA last year, and they finally got rid of him. That's $36 million. So the aspect of Preller burning through currency drives me crazy. He knows players, he knows talent, but geez, what they've spent. And have they been to the World Series yet?
No.
In 9 years?
No.
So that's where we are. I try to counterbalance my emotions about the Padres general manager.
Well, isn't it interesting the history of Preller? Because he comes on board, and all of a sudden there's the big splash. You get Matt Kemp and the Upton brothers and Kimbrel
at a big price.
He unloads the farm system. That doesn't work. He kind of reconfigures, makes the huge investment in that international draft in 2017. Built the farm system up a second time.
And they traded Mackenzie Gore and his friends to Washington.
Right.
For the rental.
But then now they just signed that DeVries kid. And so their farm system is like a top 10, top 5 program. It seems like they keep going from big star years to other years where they got Will Myers and a bunch of nobodies. Maybe they can find that equilibrium where you've got, 4 or 5 star players and you fill in the gaps with the young guys that are going to be able to produce for you.
Well, that's the way it's going to have to be because there is no more blank check at Petco Park.
No way.
So that's where we are. Hey, listen, we